So today we combine lessons 110 and 112, which are both on quadratic inequalities. So we're going to have something with x squared and something with x. And instead of equals, we're going to have greater than or less than or greater than or equal, those kinds of inequality symbols written in there. We can do these with reals and with integers, and we are going to draw a graph of the solutions on a number line. First step is always going to be to have 0 on one side and the other side factored. So this first example, that is already done for us. You see how the left is already factored, and we have 0 on the right-hand side already. Next thing we are going to do will be to find what we call critical values. Critical values are, if it were equal to 0, what solutions would we get? So if that said equals 0, that would have meant x plus 1 equals 0. So everybody shout out x would be. So our critical values are -1, and from the other parentheses, 2. Now we're going to get rid of that if equal to 0, because we know that they aren't. This is an inequality. Then when we say plot the critical values, that means I want you to draw a vertical dotted line through those two values on the number line. Does not have to be with a straight edge, but make it look reasonably nice. Make sure that your number line goes farther to the left and farther to the right than those critical values. Don't have -1 be the farthest thing on the left. I need to see the -2. I need to see the 3 over here on the right. Do you see how this divides your number line into 3 parts? I have the part on the left, I have the part between my 2 dotted lines, and I have the part on the right. Do not copy what I'm about to do right now, because I'm just kind of going to do some random stuff. I know I'm going to be shading parts of the number line. And I'm going to use some test points to figure out, oh, should I shade this part? Or maybe I should shade all of this part. Or maybe none of that. Maybe I just want to shade what's in the middle. I want to figure out which of those 3 parts, one or more of them, I'm going to be shading. So let's start working on this for real. So we plotted our critical values. I want to figure out, since this one is reals, am I going to be doing open circles or closed circles for my shading? Do I have an or equal to in this problem? So for this one, they would need to be open. Since this one is reals, I'm going to have things that are looking kind of like this. So I can go ahead and put my open circles on the endpoints. If it was an integer graph, I would not want the open circles, because then I'd have open dots and closed dots, and we don't do that. We just do the closed dots on an integer graph. To figure out which parts, we are going to pick a test point in each section. So in this part on the left, I'm going to pick -2. I'm going to plug that -2 into each of my factors. So you need to have these written on your paper, even if the problem gives it to you. Which one's first, which one's second. If I put a -2 in, I don't really care what number I get. I just care if I get a positive or a negative. If I put a -2 into this first one, x plus 1, everybody, negative or positive. And I want you to write that down. Then we do the same thing with the other factor. If I put a -2 in here, positive or negative. And this had parentheses times parentheses. So if I take negative times negative, what do I get? Is a positive what I want on this problem? Something times something, I get a positive. Is a positive bigger than 0? So that's going to make this true. So I'm going to do a happy face. I like that section, so I'm going to shade that section in. That one test point tells me to shade everything in that section. Be sure you get the second set of arrows there, either above each other or beside each other, depending on the way you like to show your shading. Had to check all of the sections on every single problem. So I need to pick something in the middle section. And I always love to pick 0. I think it's one of the easiest ones to plug in. You're going to always write these in the order that you had your factors written. So 0 plus 1, positive or negative? Positive. 0 minus 2. So we're going to write that positive, negative. If this had not already been factored and you'd been asked to factor it yourself, some of you would have had x minus 2, x plus 1 greater than 0. And then you would have shown in your work negative times positive instead of positive times negative. That's why I want to see the factors written down so I know what order you're doing them in. And positive times negative, everybody, is, do we like negatives for this problem? Because a negative is not bigger than 0, so we're not happy there. So we're not going to shade anything there. Then we go to the last section, and we pick whatever we think is easiest there. I'll pick 3. 3 plus 1, positive or negative? 3 minus 2. Positive times positive is, do we want positives here? So we're happy there, so we shade everything on that part. Anybody with a question there? Okay, next one. This time we're going to be doing integers, so we're just going to have dots in there. And this one is not already factored and not already having 0 on one side. So we need to do that work before we can ever get started. So x squared minus 3x minus 4 needs to be greater than or equal to 0. Everybody should be able to factor that. Starts with 1x squared. So I need numbers that multiply to be negative 4 and add to be negative 3. So what do I write down for my factoring on this thing? Wyatt? That's all I write? X minus 4 and x plus 1. Thumbs up, thumbs down for that factoring. Do we like it? What does that mean our critical values need to be? Yesenia? So everybody good with 4 and negative 1 would be the things that make those factors 0? Okay, we draw a number line. And then I'm going to scoot mine up just a tiny bit here. So we draw our number line, and we find wherever 4 and negative 1 are. So even though I wrote 4 first, it really belongs on the right. This time, will I include those endpoints? Kit, why are you nodding your head yes? Because it has that or equal to in there, which means we include the endpoints. So these are integers, so I can go ahead and put just dots on my endpoints so I don't forget I'm including them. Now, same as before, but this time I'm trying to figure out, do I shade all of the dots? Not do I do a solid line of shading in each of the sections. So negative 2. Negative 2 minus 4 is positive or negative? Negative. I need everybody participating. Negative 2 plus 1. Negative times negative is, do I want positives? Do I want to multiply and get bigger than 0? That's positive. So I'm happy. So I will shade, but this time I'm just shading integers. Be sure you actually fill them in. Don't get in such a hurry that some of them look like that. They need to be filled in. And remember, you need that second arrow. The number line continues and the dots continue. Okay, plug 0 in. Write down whether you get positives or negatives. Plug 0 into x minus 4. Plug 0 into x plus 1. And Austin, what do you get? For both of them? Negative, positive, thumbs up, thumbs down. Is that what everybody's coming up with? I would agree. 0 minus 4 is negative. 0 plus 1 is positive. Multiply those, and what do we have? Negative. And Leah, do we want negatives when we multiply bigger than or equal to 0? Nope, so we are not happy with those. We won't shade anything there. And then for the last one, good thing I've got at least one number out there to check. Could make my number line go farther. If I put a 5 in, then what are we going to have, Griff, for our two parentheses? Everybody good with positive, positive? And positive times positive is positive. Is that what we want? So we shade all of the integers out here, and we have that double arrow, the number line, and the dots keep on going. Okay. Moving on to lesson 112. The only difference is, oh, we just did 2 with greater than. Now we're going to do a less than. But the process is exactly the same. Get 0 on one side, factor the other side, get your critical values, test something from each section, and shade the sections that work. So I'm not real sure why the book splits it up into 2 separate parts there. So already factored for us, already have a 0 out there. So what will be our critical values for this one, Allie? Thumbs up, thumbs down. On -2 and 3, the critical values that we get? Anybody have a question on that part? So we draw dotted lines through -2 and +3 to separate those into the 3 sections. Will I include my endpoints this time? Thumbs up if yes, I need to include the endpoints and shade them in. Thumbs down if I should not include them. Thumbs down means not equal. Thumbs up means or equal. This does have an or equal, so yes, we shade them. Open circles when we don't have the equal bar, or nothing at all if it's an integer graph. Filled in if we have the or equal bar. These will be real, so I'm going to be shading one direction or another. It's going to be the solid shading from those endpoints once I figure out which parts to shade. So let's pick -3. -3 plus 2, would that be positive or negative, everybody? -3 plus 2 would be negative. What about -3 minus 3? -3, subtract 3 more, it would actually be -6, but it would be negative. Negative times negative is positive. Do we want positive? This time when we multiply, we want less than or equal to 0. We got more than 0, so we are not happy with that part. We're not going to shade it. Okay, now let's plug 0 in, and let's see what we get if we put 0 in for the x's. And again, we only care positive or negative. 0 plus 2, is that positive or negative, everyone? 0 minus 3, is that positive or negative? And positive times negative is, do we want a negative? We multiply, we want less than or equal to 0. And so that part makes us happy. So we do shade everything in, and again, solid because it's reals. Always need to check all 3 sections, no matter what. Sometimes we could come up with some things that have sections side by side that we're including. So don't just get one or another and skip the rest of the checks. Put 4 in. Go ahead and write down on your papers. If you put a 4 in, is your first parentheses positive or negative? Is your second parentheses positive or negative? And when you multiply, what do you have? Yo-yo, when you put 4 in, what do you have a positive or a negative for the first one? And the second? And positive times positive is positive. When we multiply, do we like positives? Are positives less than or equal to 0? So they don't make us happy. They don't work here. We do not shade that part. So just that middle part. And again, that's the only difference between 110 and 112. The first one you're checking to see, oh, do you get a positive to make it true? The second one, do you get a negative to make it true? Okay, 2 more. Just pointing out a couple of slightly different things that we may run into on some of these. So this is another less than one. This one is also integers, so we know we're just going to be dealing with dots. We're not going to be filling anything in. Not already with a 0, so we rearrange it. X squared minus 2x minus 3 is less than 0. And I need some help factoring. Caleb, could you factor that for me, please? Looking for multiplying to be -3 and adding to -2. So if I do a +3 and a -1, they'll multiply to be -3. Will those add to be -2? So what do you want to fix? +1, -3. Everybody, while I change that around, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think? Will that work now? Are we happy with this factoring? All right, so Ada, what will my critical values be? 3 and -1, or -1 and 3. And move my number line so I can get to it a little bit better. Draw my vertical dotted lines going through those. There's -1. There is +3. Will I be including my endpoints this time? Do I have or equal? So I am not going to shade those critical values. I'm not going to put an open circle on it because it's a dot graph. It's an integer graph, and I don't want to have open and closed dots in it. I'm not going to put anything on those. I'm just going to check left, right, and in between. So let's put a -2 in. Now, I wrote mine x plus 1, x minus 3. If you did x minus 3, x plus 1, you might do your plus and minus signs in the opposite order. But if we put -2 in, -2 plus 1, everyone, positive or negative? -2 plus 1 is negative. -2 minus 3 is, and negative times negative is positive. What I want to multiply and be less than 0. So I am not happy with that part. I'm not going to shade. Plug 0 in. Nicole, what do I get for my first one? Positive or negative? 0 plus 1. And my negative, or my second one, is negative, and positive times negative is negative. Everybody, do I want negative? Multiply, I want less than 0. So negative matches that. We're happy. So we're going to shade all of the integers in that section. And we already figured out no dots actually on the endpoints because we did not have the or equals. Finally, check the last section. Let's plug a 4 in. So Cooper, x plus 1, positive or negative? And x minus 3, positive times positive is positive. When I multiply, do I like positives? Nope, I need negatives here, so I'm not going to shade anything there, and I'm finished. Okay, I have one last example, and there's a little bit of a different twist. So everybody sit up, focus on this, make sure you get this. This one's already factored. Parentheses times parentheses. Already have a 0 on one side, but the difference is my parentheses don't both start with x. And once in a while, you'll get something like this. So remember to get your critical values. You're saying one parentheses could be 0. The other parentheses could be 0. The second one you're used to, 3, could be one of your critical values. What's going to make 2 minus x equals 0? What do you guys think? We're used to looking at it and taking the opposite of that number. Will -2 work there? Is 2 minus -2 going to give me 0? So Nicole, what are you thinking? Okay, so one way to solve it, if you add the x to both sides, you get that x is 2. Does that much make sense to everybody? So I'm going to do my dotted lines through +2 and +3. Now, because this is integers, are there any integers I might possibly shade in between 2 and 3? So I'm not even going to have to check that section. If it were reals, I might have to pick something like 2.5 to plug in and see if I'm getting positive or negative factors. But I know there's not anything there to even worry about. It is integers, so it needs to be dots. Will I put any dots on those endpoints? Not on endpoints. So all I need to do are my 2 checks. So you guys real fast, plug 0 in, 2 minus 0, 0 minus 3. See what you get. And then let's plug 4 in and do 2 minus 4 and 4 minus 3 and see what we get. And which, if either place, we need to shade some of the dots in. So you probably already had enough time to put 0 in. Everybody, 2 minus 0, positive or negative? That wasn't everybody. 0 minus 3. And positive times negative is, do we like negatives on this problem? We want to multiply and get less than 0, so we like those. And if I were smarter, I would not have made my number line go quite as far to the left. But since I did, I need to be sure I'm shading all of those in and including my double arrow. So let's check the right. 2 minus 4, was that positive or negative? And 4 minus 3, and negative times positive was negative, and you already told me we like the negatives on this problem. So we're going to shade all of the integers in this part. And that would be our solution there. Questions from anybody? All right, let's get a little bit of homework time in.